Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. We often hear that praying is talking to God and meditation is listening to God. And I believe that there is something to that. If only in that we need to slow down enough to quiet our minds and be still enough to even have a chance at that type of connection. And our scripture tonight is about the prophet Elijah. And he was an interesting character called the prophet of fire, and he had an interesting personality. He was prone to extreme highs and extreme lows. Does that sound like anybody that you know? And so our scripture is from the Old Testament, 1 Kings, chapter 19, verses 11 and 12. It says, "Go out and stand before me on the mountain," the Lord told him. And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. There was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was the sound of a gentle whisper. Can you hear it? There are lots of different ways to interpret that passage of Scripture, and many scholars disagree with each other on what it means. I think it's a fitting passage of Scripture for those of us in recovery. I think about the windstorm and the earthquake and the fire as representing what our lives are like when we are active in our addiction, drinking and using. And then when we are in our recovery and all the chaos of using is over, we can start to work on our prayer and meditation life and listen for the gentle whisper, or as some translations say it, the still, small voice of God. Can you hear it? Because He is God, He is not confined to a single manner of communicating with people. Elsewhere in the Bible, as in the book of Job, He is said to have communicated through a whirlwind. In Exodus, He announced His presence by an earthquake. In the books of Samuel, Job, Psalms, and John, He is said to speak in a voice that sounds like thunder. In Psalm 77, verse 18, His voice is compared to both thunder and a whirlwind. The point of God speaking in the still small voice was to show Elijah that the work of God need not always be accompanied by dramatic events. Divine silence does not necessarily mean divine inactivity. Zechariah chapter 4, verse 6 tells us that God's work is not by might or by power, but by Spirit, meaning that outward displays of power are not necessary for God to do His work. For me, this means something else. It means that I need to quiet my mind and to slow my activity so that I don't miss out on what it is that God is trying to tell me. In Psalm 46, verse 10, we hear these words, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still. So how many here, besides me, would like to benefit from a little bit more serenity in your life, a little less chaos, a little more peace? These are some of the things that we want to have come true and that are promised to us in our promises. So just by a quick show of hands, and I need rigorous honesty here, how many people meditate on a daily basis? Not pray and meditate, but meditate on a daily basis. Okay? And how many meditate regularly, 3 times a week or more? And do you find it helps? How many people try it but struggle with it? Quite a few more. We hear in the meeting rooms that we're funny creatures. We find something that works and then we stop doing it. So I'm wondering if you can give me the slide about goals up there, Doug, please. A goal without a plan is just a dream. In order for it to become a goal, there must be a plan and a contract with yourself to execute the plan. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've made a good number of plans over the years that I've never executed. They seem like good plans at the time, but I didn't actually make a contract with myself and make it important enough to do something about it. So what are some of the things that get in the way of or interrupt our serenity? So I've just put down a few that I thought of earlier today. One is sleeping in. So when we sleep in, we get up in the morning in a flap, and certain things have to be left undone, like maybe having breakfast or maybe doing your prayer and meditation as an example. Something else that interferes with our peace and serenity is television. Did you know that the average adult sees about 2,000 ads per day in media? And 30 years ago, that number was less than 500. We are bombarded with images that mess with our serenity. Something else that gets in the way of our serenity is social media. And I believe, as I've said here before, this is my little soapbox part about social media, that one of the leading causes of low self-esteem is social media, comparing yourselves to other people on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, YouTube, etc. What else gets in the way of our serenity? What about cell phones? Constantly ringing and chirping, sending us emails, text messages, and pictures. So not only does sleeping in get in the way of our serenity, not getting enough sleep gets in the way of our serenity. I don't know about you, but when I'm sleep deprived, I tend to be a little grumpy, a little more grumpy and irritable. What about worry? Does that get in the way of your serenity? Sure does mine. What about case building? Anybody guilty of case building or scenario planning? What about overcommitting? Does anybody here besides me overcommit? Put your hands up every time somebody's looking for a volunteer. What about general busyness? We live in a busy society. There's always something going on, something to go to, a sports event, a party, especially at this time of year, a time of year that's supposed to be full of peace and calmness and serenity. There always seems to be something to be doing. And all that busyness gets in the way of our serenity. Can I have the other slide up there, please, Doug? You're messing with my serenity. So practice a little meditation right now. Well, now we've really done it. So, there we go. It says you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes a day unless you're too busy, and then you should sit for an hour. I love that. When I was getting ready for tonight, I decided to do some research about the positive effects of meditation. And I found an article written in Psychology Today by Dr. Emma Schepola, who is a science director at Stanford University and the author of a book called The Happiness Track. She writes, I started meditating soon after 9/11. I was living in Manhattan, an already chaotic place, at an extremely chaotic time. I can only imagine. I realized that I had no control over my external environment, but there was one place that I did have a say over, and it was in my mind through meditation. When I started meditating, I did not realize that it would make me healthier, happier, and more successful. Having witnessed the benefits, I devoted my PhD research at Stanford to studying the impact of meditation. I saw people from diverse backgrounds, from college students to war veterans, benefit. In the last 10 years, hundreds of studies have been released. And I'm going to share with you 20 scientifically validated reasons why you might want to jump on the meditation bandwagon today. It boosts your health. So number one, it's scientifically proven to increase your immune function. A study published in the Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine says, these findings demonstrate that a short program in mindfulness meditation produce positive effects on the brain and immune function. These findings suggest that meditation may change brain and immune function in positive ways and underscores the need for additional research. This is interesting. Number two, it decreases pain. In a study called Brain Mechanisms Supporting Modulation of Pain by Mindfulness Meditation, finds that after just 4 days of mindfulness meditation training and meditation significantly reduced pain unpleasantness by 57% and pain intensity ratings by 40% when compared to simple rest. This one blew me away. Decreases inflammation at the cellular level. So it can decrease inflammation in your joints and your soft tissues. Results from a study showed that meditation practice produces increases over time in daily experiences of positive emotions, which in turn produce increases in a wide variety of personal resources, such as increased mindfulness, purpose in life, social support, decreased illness symptoms, etc. Number 5 and 6, it decreases depression and anxiety. And that's from a study done by the Cognitive Therapy and Research Journal in August 2004, and another study in the Science Direct Journal, which says, we conclude that an intensive intervention based on mindfulness meditation can have long-term beneficial effects in the treatment of people diagnosed with anxiety disorders. This is amazing stuff. This is peer-reviewed scientific research about meditation. Not to out everybody here, but only about 10 or 15% of the people put up their hands that they meditate every day. Decreases stress. Anybody here get stressed from time to time besides me? From the Journal of Biobehavioral Medicine, after the intervention, patients in the treatment group had significantly lower scores on total mood disturbance and subscales of depression, anxiety, anger, and confusion, and more vigor than control subjects. The treatment group also had fewer overall symptoms of stress, fewer cardiopulmonary and gastrointestinal symptoms, less emotional irritability, depression and cognitive disorganization, and fewer habitual patterns of stress. Overall, in total mood disturbance, the reduction was 65%, with a 31% reduction in stress alone. According to a study done by the American Psychological Association, it increases social connection and emotional intelligence. They say compared with a closely matched control group, even just a few minutes of meditation increased feelings of social connection and positivity to individuals on both explicit and implicit levels. These results suggest that this easily implemented technique may help to create positive emotions and decrease social isolation. Number 9, it makes you more compassionate. Number 10, it makes you feel less lonely. Number 11, it improves your ability to regulate your emotions. Number 12, it improves your ability to be introspective. Now this category is it improves your brain for the better. These ones also blew me away. 3 studies show that it increases gray matter, so it actually increases the amount of brain cells that we have. Research has provided evidence for meditation-induced improvements in psychological and physiological well-being. Moreover, meditation practice has been shown not only to benefit higher-order cognitive functions, but also to alter brain activity. Using high-resolution MRI data, we detected significantly larger gray matter volumes in the frontal cortex. It's amazing stuff just from meditating. No medicine involved. Number 14, increases volume in areas, this is brain mass again, related to emotion regulation, positive emotions, and self-control. Increases cortical thickness in areas relating to paying attention. It improves your productivity. Now, I like this part because by doing nothing, I can improve my productivity. That's great. Everybody should buy into this just based on this one alone. It increases your focus and attention, improves your ability to multitask, and improves your memory. Number 19, it improves your ability to be creative and think outside the box. And that's from a study done by Dr. Jay Schuler, the professor at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Now this one is another one I really like. I need all the help I can get in this area. It makes you wiser. It gives you perspective. By observing your mind, you realize you don't have to be a slave to it. We realize that we throw temper tantrums, get grumpy, happy and sad, but our minds don't have to run us. So, meditation is quite simply mental hygiene. Clear out the junk, tune in your talents, and get in touch with yourself. Think about it. You shower every day and clean your body, but have you ever showered your mind? If you do, you'll feel more clear and see things with a greater perspective. The quality of our life depends on the quality of our mind. We can't control what happens on the outside, but we do have a say of what happens in our mind. No matter what's going on, if your mind is okay, everything is okay, right now, in this moment. The other thing about meditation is it keeps you real. Once you get to know your mind, you start to own your own stuff and you become more authentic, maybe even humble. We start to recognize the stories and soap operas that we play in our minds and that we put ourselves through, and we gain some perspective on them. We come to realize that most of us are caught up in some type of mind drama, and we become more compassionate to other people as a result of knowing that. And the more you meditate, the more you seem to benefit. Now, here are just a few myths about meditation. Some people think that you will have an empty mind, but in fact, when you start meditating, exactly the opposite happens. Some people think or worry about, like Pete and I do, that you might have to get in the lotus position. My knees are aching just talking about it. But the good news is you can actually sit on the couch, but Pete, you can't lie down because that's called a nap. Some people think that you have to sit for an hour a day. Nope, small doses will work just fine. Some people think that you have to chant in a language that you don't understand, and you don't have to unless that's what floats your boat. Some people think that you have to be Buddhist, Hindu, or it has to be a religious practice, but it doesn't have to be unless you make it so. And some people think it's just weird. So what's weird about sitting and breathing? Besides business leaders, world leaders, professional athletes, and even the U.S. Marine Corps are doing it, so how weird can it be? Here's some excuses I often hear for not meditating. I can't clear my mind. Well, don't worry about it. While you're sitting there, you'll experience noisy chaos of a wound-up mind that's unwinding, tons of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Don't worry about how you feel while you're meditating, but notice how you feel afterwards and throughout the rest of the day. Some people say, I get anxious. Well, that's also normal. That's all the junk coming up. Learn some breathing practices to calm yourself down, or exercise or do yoga before meditating. Lots of people will say to me, I hate sitting still. And I know, this used to drive me crazy too. But just try it for 30 days. Give yourself time to be without constantly doing something. Remember, we are human beings, not human doings. Lots of people say, just like they do about meetings, I tried it and I hated it. Well, there's not just one kind of meditation. There's a whole menu of them out there. So look for a shoe that fits. There's mindfulness meditation, transcendental meditation, compassion meditation, mantra meditation, art of living, breathing practices meditation, yoga nidra meditation, yoga insight, loving kindness meditation, tai chi, etc., etc. And the big one that I hear most frequently is, I don't have time. Well, think of all the minutes that you waste every day on the internet, on Facebook, on Instagram, mindlessly surfing or watching TV, And I'm sure you can definitely find 20 minutes here and there that will give you a boost, those 20 things that I talked about. Are you willing to turn your dream of a more calm, peaceful life into a goal by making it a contract and executing it? Maybe, or maybe not. But remember, if you keep on doing what you've always been doing, you'll keep on getting what you've always got. The gentle whisper, can you hear it? We're all so plugged in to our phones, to our TVs, to our computers, all worried that we might miss something. And in being plugged in, we might be missing the most important thing that we can learn. Remember, be still and know that I am God.